let's start with some of the basics of real numbers. If I were to say 5 minus 2, most people should be pretty comfortable with that the answer is 3. However, what is this really saying? Why is 5 minus 2 3? If we were to consider a number line, what this is really saying is start at 5 and move backwards by 2. So we get to 4 and then 3. So 5 minus 2 is equal to 3. What about something like 3 minus 7? When we very first learn to subtract numbers, we're told that the big number has to come first. We can't do 3 minus 7 because 7 is bigger than 3. But then we learn about negative numbers and find we can do this. So let's think about this in terms of the number line. This is saying start at 3 and move left 7. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So 3 minus 7 is negative 4. And if we're subtracting any two numbers, we can use this process of drawing the number line, starting at the first number and moving left by the second number. But we don't want to do this every time. We may have really big numbers and we don't want to have to draw every time. Not to mention this takes a lot of time. It's very time consuming and we just don't want to have to deal with that. So let's see if we can figure out some shortcuts. In general, whenever we're subtracting numbers, we subtract the two numbers the same way we learned in grade school. Take the big one minus the small one. And then the key is to figure out what the sign is. We're going to subtract and then take the sign of the bigger number. For example, when we did 5 minus 2, we know that 5 minus 2 is 3, and since 5 is bigger than 2, our answer is positive. 3 minus 7, we know that 7 minus 3 is 4, but since 7 is bigger than 3, it's going to be negative because we have minus 7. And now we can expand this to do bigger numbers. For something like 438 minus 572, we start by subtracting. 572 minus 438 is, and you can double check this, 134. And then we want the sign of the bigger number. We know that 500 is bigger than 400, so it'll be negative. Another one, negative 39 plus 64. As long as we have one positive and one negative, all we're doing is subtracting. This can also be written as 64 minus 39. So just because the negative number comes first doesn't really change anything. We know that 64 minus 39 is 25. And since 64 is bigger than 39, our answer is positive. And this is our basic process whenever we have two numbers of different signs, a positive and a negative. So the next question is, what about two negatives? If we have two positives, that's just addition, but what about two negatives? Here we have negative 6 minus 4. If we go back to thinking of our number line, we know we start at the first number, which is negative 6, and then we're going to move left by 4. So 1, 2, 3, and then 4. So we get negative 10. So is there a shortcut that we can deal with whenever we have two of the same sign? And there is. If two things are the same sign, then we just add the numbers and keep the sign that was in the original problem. 6 plus 4 is 10, and since they're both negative here, we have negative 10. So if we have two of the same sign, just add and then use the sign that you had originally. For example, negative 47 minus 21. We know if we add 47 plus 21, we get 68. And both of these are negative, so we have negative 68. 26 plus 43, well, we know if we add these two numbers, we get 69, and they're both positive, so this is positive. So this is working for both addition and subtraction. So now the question is, what about subtracting a negative? What about a double negative? 3 minus negative 2. You may remember that a double negative is equal to a positive, but the question is, why? Why is this working the way we want it to and the way we were taught? Well, let's go back to our number line. We know we need to start at 3, and subtraction says we need to move backwards. However, we have another subtraction which essentially says we need to change direction again. So now we're going to be moving to the right by 2. 1 and then 2. Ideally, when we think of our number line, we always want to be moving to the right, but a negative sign says we need to switch directions. So we switched to moving to the left, and then our second negative switched us back to the positive side. So 3 minus negative 2 is the same thing as 3 plus 2, which we know is 5. 72 minus negative 64. We know this is 72 plus 64 because the double negative cancels. 72 plus 64 is 136, and they're both positive, so this will stay positive. Our next one, negative 39 minus negative 25. Once again, the double negative makes us positive. Now we have one of each sign, so we subtract. 39 minus 25 is 14, and then we take the sign of the bigger number, which in this case is negative 39, so negative 14.